Happy Friday. We got the keys to the trees.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's Friday sponsor is FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. New customers can place a $5 bet, and then you'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if that first $5 bet hits. Head on over to FanDuel.com in order to get started. Happy Friday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. It's homecoming weekend. The Stanford Cardinal are making the cross-country trek over into Raleigh, North Carolina to take on our NC State Wolfpack. We're coming out of the bye. We're looking to get a new energy and potentially finish the season on a very high note. Kenton, we have the keys to the trees for you on Friday. Here we go.
By the way, I'm sorry my voice sounds like this. I don't know what happened. I woke up and I sound like Doc Rivers. Sorry, everybody. Hopefully I don't blow a 3-1.
You got a box out.
Hopefully I don't blow a 3-1 lead here. But in all seriousness, this NC State team should treat this Stanford Cardinal team like another out west legend, Snoop Dogg would. Roll these trees up and smoke them early, okay? Get them on out the way. And let me tell you the keys to doing so. The first thing, put up what Stanford allows every game. Grayson, how many points per game is Stanford allowing on average now?
Allowing 31.5.
31.5, ladies and gentlemen. They're allowing 31.5. And Grayson and I took you over how that is a little bit different because they don't have two games that are weighing for 110 points like NC State does in terms of getting the absolute doors blown off by Clemson and Tennessee. This is literally just every team housing them and putting up a 30 ball or more. So just do what average offenses can do against this team and you'll be fine.
This, and we kind of talked about it earlier in the season, I believe is when we played Louisiana Tech. We were hoping for like a get-right type of game for this offense. Grayson McCall gets hurt. CJ Bailey has to come in and save the day. And then so went our get-right game. I think now this is our second opportunity at a get-right game. Stanford has been struggling, and I do mean struggling. They're coming off of 5 consecutive losses. In all of these losses, maybe the exception of last week against Wake Forest, they've been getting their doors blown off. I'm talking 40-plus, 45-plus points, just getting absolutely eviscerated on defense. NC State, this is their opportunity to really build a whole lot of confidence that can help push you through the end of the season. I think that win on the road out at Cal and then going into the bye week, perfect timing for this team that really needs to get some momentum going. But then coming out of that bye week, you're playing a team that's just, they're not in a good spot right now. Defense has really been struggling. They also have their own issues on offense scoring themselves. This is a great opportunity for CJ Bailey to cook, for Hollywood Smothers to cook, for Justin Jolie to cook. I would love nothing more for the NC State offense to have their most complete effort of the season on Saturday.
This is the worst defense CJ Bailey has played as a starter. It's just a factual statement. Got to capitalize.
Our second offensive key.
Run the ball well and put it away. Here's the thing. I don't have any doubts that we will develop a lead at some point in time. And when we develop that lead, we know that it is not a glitch. It is, in fact, a feature of Dorn and how he does things, that when you get that lead, we will go conservative. We will run the ball more than we probably should. Well, if you know that that's what you have to do, make the damn best of it, okay? I come from an old school of thought where if you have to do something, if there's no way around something, if it's too high to get over, too low to get under, and you're going to be stuck in the middle there, you have got to just say, I'm going to grin and bear it through this thing, and I'm going to do the best I can with it. They have to run the ball well because I expect a lead to be built. But if you cannot run the ball late down the stretch, you will have another Wake Forest on your hands potentially. Run the ball well, 135 yards plus.
Stanford's pass defense is a lot worse than their run defense is, but this is another great opportunity for NC State to pass to set up the run. And I think they tried to do a lot more of that out at Cal. The run part ended up unsuccessful, but they did do the passing part right. Against Stanford, if you put it on them early in this game, and hopefully with that renewed energy, you see more of a conceited effort to punch them in the mouth right out of the gate instead of having to wait until the fourth quarter to make a comeback. If you're able to score early and enter halftime with a pretty comfortable lead, I would say, you would hope that the run game would be able to take you the rest of the way. Not so much in a conservative sense, but in a fact that you've been dicing them through the air, that they have to rely on the defense to kind of expect that. And then Hollywood Smothers shoots up the gap for 15 plus yards. That's the type of game I'm looking for NC State, both through the air, but especially on the ground, because salting this game away at the very end, although it drives us crazy, that's more than likely the scenario you're going to find yourself in. So in order to do that successfully, you have to run the ball well. We're looking for at least 135 on the ground. And our third and final offensive key.
Last but not least, stay on schedule. I want no more than 8 third and longs. By third and longs, I mean 3rd and 7+. Here's the deal. There's only so many plays you have to convert those situations. Not only that, it ties into number 2, because do you know how you end up in those and long situations? If you cannot run the damn ball, you will end up constantly having to throw it. And if the guys know that you're using the quick passing game as a substitute for the running game, then they're going to go, hey, we're coming downhill, no frills, and we'll take our chances. So stay on schedule, stay ahead of schedule, have third and mediums, have third and shorts where you're in a much better position to convert than third and long.
And in addition to being on schedule, I want to see some aggression. I want to see NC State be the aggressor on offense in this game. We've been 0 for 8 in that category so far. I want to see this game be a change in philosophy. Go out and try to score right out of the gate immediately. Let Stanford know that this is the way that the game is going to go. We're in complete control today. Maybe that's asking for too much at this point of the season. I don't care. That's what I want to see from this offense on Saturday. Now switching gears over to defense and special teams.
First one, stop Alec Iomenor. Let me tell you something. That Canuck can get it done, okay? For those of you who don't know, he is Canadian. He was born in Alberta. He can absolutely ball. He can get it done. For whatever reason, he decided the ice was not for him, and now it's America's problem. Well, in this game, I say, hey, Tony Gibson, make it his problem. Say, you know what? I know we normally don't do this, but we're going to break y'all off with a little piece of the remix. We're going to have 2 guys with him everywhere he goes. There will be 4 eyeballs every single place that Alec goes. If he breathes too hard, I want one of you having an inhaler for him. If he goes to the bathroom, I need one of you there ready to wipe and one ready to shake. I need somebody there every single step of the way with everything Alec does in this game. Hold him to less than 125 yards and less than 2 touchdowns.
For NC State's defense, this right here is your ball game. And sure, there's other players on the field for Stanford that can make a difference, but at the same time, no, there are not. This is the beginning and the end for Stanford's offense. If they can't beat you using Iomenor, they're not going to beat you. He would have to go Super Saiyan in order to beat NC State on Saturday. And if this turns into a 2022 Boston College game where they only had Zay Flowers, we know that they only have Zay Flowers, and that's the only way they can beat us, and then they go out and beat us, nightmare scenario. We're making this abundantly clear now. Stanford has one, and I mean seriously, one offensive weapon. It is wide receiver number 13. You stop him, Stanford cannot, will never beat you. It is quite literally that simple. Our second key on defense.
So the second key of the game here is to hold Stanford. I don't think that we are understanding how bad Stanford is. They are on average losing every single game by 12 points, just as an average, just as your baseline. Okay. But even if we say, well, again, averages can be skewed. Look at NC State and what those 2 terrible losses did to what our average is against teams and all that. Again, look at what is happening. This squad, just hold them to who they are. Do not let them become superstars that they are not. Hold them to 19.5 or less Because, Grayson, how many points are they averaging per game on the season?
19.5. That's it.
Okay, so if you hold them under that, if you hold them to who they are, you'll be just fine.
Don't make somebody a hero for a day. It's really that simple. Sometimes it sounds too simple to be true. This is not one of those times. Stanford's offense, they struggle moving the ball. They struggle scoring the ball. Do not help them out. We would have to beat ourselves repeatedly in this game for that to be the final result. And I know we talked a lot about Wake Forest and how bad they are, and then we lost. That part is still true. Stanford is worse than that. Don't allow part two of an already bad situation. Don't help them out. Don't give them leeway. Go out, put foot on neck. It is literally that simple. And our third and final defensive key.
Create 2 or more short fields. Flip the field past the 50-yard line. Here's the deal. I know that CJ Bailey is getting better. I know that this team's secondary is, to say that they're suspect is an understatement. At this point in time, they're the suspect. They have an APB and a Bolo out on them saying, hey, please locate anybody who can cover in the Palo Alto area. With that in mind, if you cannot create short fields, you create a situation where your offense has to drive and get it right every single time. And our offense has shown us that they have a propensity to be really good between the 20s. And then all of a sudden, when you get to that other 20, when you get to that red zone, when you get to 10 yards outside the red zone, you got to do it right every time. And all it takes is that one play to get it wrong. Well, you know what eliminates those possibilities? You know what eliminates that one play at the end of the drive being necessary? A short field. Create 2 field flippers, and we'll be just fine in this one.
Turnover margin, baby. You've heard us talk about it so much this season. That's because it is more often than not the number one priority. If you win the turnover margin, more than likely you will win the game, unless you're SMU and Durham. If NC State wins the turnover margin in this game, they're going to win the ball game. Ashton Daniels, the quarterback for Stanford, he's struggled a little bit taking care of the ball. I believe I told you yesterday he's already thrown 8 interceptions. Stanford has also had some fumble issues as well. If NC State can create turnovers and flip the field like we're talking about here, it should make for a very entertaining day in Carter Finley. That's what we're looking for. No more, no less. Control the game, control the turnover margin, and give your offense more opportunities to score on a short field.
At the end of the day, that's what this is all about. Take some pressure off of CJ and the offense. Give them short fields. Give them fields that are very manageable.
Coming up next, we're going to get into Fan Friday, addressing our top comments of the week. This comes after a quick word from our sponsors. Our first Friday sponsor is 5 Hour Energy. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, and sometimes an agonizing second overtime. This is why they've created Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot. This is a special flavor called Fan Fuel, the energy shot that you need, and it's made for super fans just like us. The fans that are first in the parking lot in the morning and are last to leave in the afternoon, your effort does not go unnoticed. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to keep you fueled throughout the entire season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5 Hour Energy. This is available on the 5hourenergy.com website, shipped nationwide. Middle portion of our Friday show. Now time for Fan Friday, addressing our top comments of the week. Here we go. First one comes from AmSal97. They say, I think there are 2 very mentally different 2-2 options. Obviously, losing to Stanford would be bad, but losing to Duke and the Dirty Foot Club, making us 0-3 against in-state opponents, would hurt a lot more than losing to Stanford and Georgia Tech. Kenton, your thoughts?
I mean, in the words of one Stephen A. Smith, let's be nice. Let's be nice. You're not wrong, but you didn't have to say it. Going 0-3 against Duke, the Dirty Foot Club, and Wake Forest, I would literally throw up in my mouth. And that is not an exaggeration. I would literally start feeling physically ill at the thought of Williams' last game beating the Pack. Come on, man. Come on. Put that old man out to pasture. Tell him, look at the trees and handle your business. Okay. This is, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh boy. If I had to choose a situation, and I know that everybody's always like, oh, we shouldn't make beating UNC be our Super Bowl. This is different because this is that man's last game as a head coach, and we all know it. We all know it. We all smell it. We all feel it. You cannot let him go out with a win, go out with a bang, go out in style over you. So, I mean, I would much rather have Stanford and Georgia Tech because, to be honest, although those two teams are worse than Duke and UNC, at least you still beat the in-state guys. At least you still on the recruiting trail. You could say, hey, if you want to stay home and win ball games, this is where you come. This is the place. As opposed to them saying, well, last time I checked, we got bragging rights. Last time I checked, you got to win those two.
Obviously, we don't want to lose any of our last four, but there are two that would sting a whole lot more than the other two, and I think it goes without saying here. A couple weeks ago, when we talked about the big picture goals being off of the table for this football team, we're asking, what is there left to play for? And one of the answers was pride. Pride certainly applies against Duke and the Dirty Foot Club. If there were ever two instances on the rest of this schedule where you give 137% instead of just 100, it's Duke and the Dirty Foot Club. Big picture goals be damned at this point. You have to lay it on the line against those two schools in particular, and Stanford and Georgia Tech as well, but Duke and the Dirty Foot Club in particular. Yes, because you have already lost to Wake Forest. And if you get swept by your three in-state rival schools in this year when it was supposed to be different, believe me when I tell you, we will never hear the end of it. We already don't for years past, but especially in this year. You will never hear the end of it if William walks out a winner against the NC State Wolfpack. I agree with you, Kenton. I will join you in vomiting all over myself if that is the end result. I don't want to live in a world where that is reality. I am hoping and praying that I'm not going to have to eat my words at the end of this new month of November. Leave, no doubt. Be NC State. Play NC State football. That's what we need to see moving forward. Our second one here comes from Mike Stewart. He says, finishing 4-0 doesn't erase the failed expectations of the season. I do think it solidifies some of the key players staying for next year as being the most important result. 2-2 or worse, I believe some key players leave. Our fan base loses more interest and our NIL suffers. So yes, this is what we were discussing in Wednesday's episode. I think it's so imperative to finish 4-0 in this season because really anything less, maybe not quite 3-1, but I do think 2-2 or less, you would lose so much momentum that you have spent the last 4 to 5 years building that it would kind of feel like you're reverting back to a 2019 type of season. When you have worked so hard to make 8 to 9 wins your floor and you finish so far below that in the year that had the biggest expectations, you're going to lose a lot of steam in recruiting, in NIL donations, in team culture. You're going to lose a ton of that. And I do believe this to be true. I think if Doran ever has a chance of hitting 10 wins and potentially more at NC State, I think it completely rides on finishing 4-0 this year. I think if you don't finish 4-0 this year, I think it is completely sunk because all that momentum lost, it's going to come back and bite you in the long run.
Grayson, do you remember what I said coming into this season about recruiting? There were
do.
multiple guys who I had spoken with, folks close to the situation, who said, listen, if NC State can win something, if they can show that they can win and they can compete, who knows how spicy these races could get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this kid's committed, but how committed? You were 18 once. I was committed to another school. I've been there. And so I had that conversation with some folks. This year definitely has hurt that to a high degree. But going 6-6 or worse, I don't even want to know, man. I don't even want to think about it. I'm telling you, some guys who were big names that we were allegedly right on the bubble for, right around the corner for, it was right there for us. And so to go 2-2 or worse, you not only lose that recruiting, you lose the players that you currently have to a certain degree because they're going to figure, is this team ever going to be champions? I'm not sure.
This is probably a little bit of a stretch, but think of a guy like Faison Brandon, 5-star quarterback, number 1 quarterback in the country, and NC State is listed in his final 4 schools that he is interested in. Now imagine if NC State was winning or at least competing for ACC championships. You think that wouldn't change his mind at least a little bit? It absolutely would. That's the type of situation we're talking about here. When you finish 6-6, potentially worse than that, you lose so much momentum that you are starting to knock on the door with. It's just completely wiped out. That's the way these things work. So finishing 4-0, which would be a quote unquote high note, all things considered, it is quite literally that important. To try and keep this train rolling, so to speak, you have got to lay it on the line and sustain some of the momentum and stop the bleeding. Next one here comes from VA Aggie 96. They say, I definitely say abandon the 3-3-5. Been saying that since before the season started, given the personnel. So let's start asking the real questions. Not that this season is a total loss, but moving forward, the O-line and linebacker positions have to be addressed for next year to be a success, as well as retaining wide receiver talent. Given the way the portal is used and incoming talent, is it more important to focus on coaching or acquiring better talent? One or the other, which is more important for immediate success in your opinion?
Well, I think it's both. And I know that feels like a cop-out answer, but it's the truth. Every team is slightly different about this. Clemson can recruit out of high school well enough to where they've shown America, hey, we don't need the portal. Look at us. We don't need it. It's nice to have. We do not need it to dominate. NC State is not a place where we're recruiting like Clemson in terms of high school players. It's an objective fact. So you need to focus on acquiring better talent and guys who can fill in some gaps right away. That needs to be a part of it. But also, NC State is built on and wins in player development. And the minute that you throw Thunder and what he does to the side, the minute that you throw these position coaches and what they do to the side, you strip NC State of one of its superpowers. It's like telling Lamar, go win a game, but by the way, do not move at all in the pocket. Be a statue.
Yeah.
It's like, well, he can feasibly do it. He can make the reads and throw like an NFL quarterback, but you're taking away one of his best things. So I think that these are things that they're not one or the other. They need to work in tandem. And I think the biggest thing of what is going wrong this season, Grayson, how many starters do we have out for the season currently?
Caden Fordham is one. Do you count Devin Boykin?
Sure. We'll throw Devin Boykin there.
That's a fringe two. Outside of those two, that's it.
So you got 2 starters out for the season, so it's not health. There was a lack of development. And what I mean by lack of development, these guys did not play like it was their bad year. There were guys who did not play like, hey, and I'm not going to call anybody out because we talked about these guys ad nauseum, but on offense and defense, at all levels, we have seen guys who are like, hey, you've been in this program, you've gotten so much better each year, and this year they came out and laid it an absolute egg. So it's not about one or the other. It's about one with the other. How do they complement each other? Because I don't think the state has the money to build a team like Ohio State in terms of like, hey, we're going to pay $20 million for this offense. And I don't think we have the high school recruiting of Clemson where it's like, we don't need anybody out the portal. We don't need nothing. All we got is all we need. I don't think we're quite there yet.
I think this is pretty much a team-by-team basis, but for NC State specifically, yeah, it has to be a combination of both. When you're kind of taking a peek into next season, very obviously you're going to need to go into the portal, get offensive linemen, probably some defensive linemen, and certainly some linebackers as well. Now, it's not to say that we don't have potentially guys that could play going into next year that are already on the roster, but how much confidence would you have when you are looking at that roster? And a lot of the guys are young underclassmen. Some of them are getting some valuable experience this year, but will they be day one, snap one, game one ready next year? I think it's hard to say. So in that example, you got to go into the portal. You have to go into the portal and pick out the best possible talent that you can get. Now, going into the portal, as we found out this year, it's not a Band-Aid. It doesn't just cover up everything when you take a good player from someone else. They have to be a good fit and they have to pan out on the field. So that's where the coaching aspect, it still matters. For NC State, there has to be a balance here. And you certainly hope that they're going to take some of the lessons learned this year, hopefully into next year, and have a better approach into the portal and a better approach into implementing these new portal additions and how they pan out onto the team. There should be some very valuable lessons learned this year, and you just hope to see that taken forward into next year. And our last one here from Jason NCSU 2007, he says, while the exhibition basketball game got a little spooky, it should make for a good film review for Keats. It was a good ego check to see these guys focus for a challenging season where teams are going to want to show up against a recent Final Four team if they can. So I did hear Coach Keats' post-exhibition game comments where he said something to the effect of, I would rather have a game situation like this than a 40-point win. Believe it or not, I also agree with what he's trying to say there. In a 40-point win against a D2 school, how much do you really learn about yourself? In all honesty, probably not that much. But when you are playing a D2 school and it gets to the point where it's a tie game with just minutes left, you've missed 13 free throws, you've turned the ball over 19 times, and you didn't shoot well as a team. You find out a whole lot about yourself and things that instantly need to be addressed before you even start the season. So I believe that is what Coach Keats was saying. And to his point, yeah, I absolutely agree. You check egos at the door. Just because you went to a Final Four and you win an ACC championship, that does nothing for you in this season. Last year's accomplishments mean squat when you get into this season. There can't be any aura of, well, this is what we did last year. We get some grace period. We're good now. We're good in Raleigh. These fans love us. It ain't going to work like that. It's still back to work for this team. And I think struggling against a D2 school, you instantly got that reality check of, oh, maybe we're not really what we thought we were heading into this season. I think that can be used potentially as a very valuable teaching point. We'll see how we look on Monday night.
Why is there an ego at all with this team?
Exactly.
The leading scorer from last year, is he back, Grayson?
He is not.
The second leading scorer, is he back?
He is not.
Matter of fact, of the top 5 scorers from last year, how many of them are back? Jaden Taylor. That's it. That's it. The top 5 scorers from last year, DJ Horn, DJ Burns, Casey Morcell, Mo Diarra, Jaden Taylor.
There you go.
Jaden Taylor is third behind the DJs. But, you know, that's just what I'm seeing there. But you know what? I know what it is, Grayson. I know what it is. This is a team that they may lose a little bit of scoring, but on the boards, they're not losing their top rebounder, right?
They did.
They did. Okay. Well, hold on, Grayson. I know what it is. I know. I got it. I got it figured out now. I got it figured out. Okay. So apparently they're not losing any good perimeter defenders. Their leading steal guys are still on the team, right?
More bad news for you. Casey Morcell moved on.
Oh, not only did Casey Morcell, DJ Horn actually led the team in steals per game. But don't worry. I know this. I know the answer to this one. Grayson, at least we got our rim protection back, right?
We did not.
Our top shot blockers are. So what the hell is there an ego about? That team went to a Final Four. That team, the DJs, Mo Diarra, Casey Morcell, they went somewhere. This current group, yeah, almost made me lose my clean rating. You ain't did nothing. You ain't did nothing. Banners don't hang in perpetuity.
No.
The NCAA doesn't owe NC State a banner now. The ACC doesn't owe NC State a banner now. They've already given it. It's already been shipped. We're already going to have the nights where we hang them up and celebrate that team and tell them how wonderful they are. That's already set. But the 2024-2025 team ain't pissed a drop. Ain't pissed a damn drop. So the idea that there are egos that need to be checked out the door is insane to begin with. But I do want to touch on what you said there in terms of you do learn more in the loss or in a close game than you do a 40-point blowout. I will say this. I think you learn the same amount, but it's how much of it do you apply? Yeah. Because in a 40-point win, even if you are setting terrible screens, you're saying to yourself, my screens can't be too terrible. We won by 40 points. Even though you're looking on the film and you know you're setting terrible screens, you're not rolling to the rim as hard as you can. Now I'm really getting in my Doc Rivers bag. This is crazy. But you know that. You know you're not doing what you're supposed to do, but you won by 40. You can go ahead and pat yourself on the back and say, oh, we're so good. We're so special. We don't need to do little things right. In that 2-point win against the D2 school, now all of a sudden you got a little tight in your seat. Now all of a sudden you know anybody can beat us if we don't do the little things right. Instead of, hey, we're fat cats living high on the hog, baby. We can do the things wrong if we want to. And, you know, it really doesn't matter. Young Thug is free, and I want to quote Young Thug to close this episode out. Did a lot of stuff just to live this here lifestyle. You have to do a lot of stuff, the little stuff right, in order to live a champion's lifestyle. Without doing the little stuff, you don't get the lifestyle. You don't get the boombox deals. You don't get the DJ Burns Day, DJ Horn Day in Raleigh. You don't get it without doing the little stuff.
And of course, we do understand it was just an exhibition, but that's the mindset that has to come into this season for this team. If it's not there, they're going to learn about themselves very quickly in a very negative light. I can promise you that. With their non-conference schedule, yeah. You're going to get run out the gym if you think that you've already won these games before the opening tip-off. Promise you that. Closing out our Friday show, we're going to give our final thoughts and our pregame predictions ahead of Saturday's matchup. This comes after a quick word from our sponsors. Our second Friday sponsor is FanDuel. Get ready to tackle NFL action this season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if that first bet wins. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in just one easy-to-use place. When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the very same page that you're placing all of your bets. Head on over to FanDuel.com in order to join today. You'll get started with that $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of just $5 hits. That's FanDuel.com in order to get started. Last couple of minutes here to round out our Friday show. Our final pregame thoughts and predictions ahead of Saturday's homecoming game against the Stanford Cardinal. It is another noon kickoff in Carter Finley, ACC Network. NC State is currently favored by 10.5 for the first double-digit spread in our favor all season against a P4 school. Kenton, how do you see this thing going on Saturday?
NC State wins, but they do not cover. I got it 30-20, the Pack win, but Stanford finds a way to backdoor themselves into a bad beat for everybody who's taking NC State with the points.
Give me one NC State player to score.
All right. As sure as the sun rises on the east and sets on the west, I got KC getting into the end zone this game. It's been too long. I think he gets in not once, but twice in this one.
I like it. All right. I also have NC State to win. I actually have NC State to cover. I think they're going to stand on business in this game. Stanford has been hapless lately. NC State's looking for a new energy to finish on that high note. They said that their new goal is to finish 4-0. I think at least, the very least, they're going to get the first one out of the way. I think they handle Stanford. They celebrate homecoming in a great way, and they win this game by more than 10.5 points. I have them winning by 17 points. I have 37-20 over the Stanford Cardinal, and I'll give you not one anytime touchdown scorer, but two anytime touchdown scorers. Justin Jolie and Hollywood Smothers are both getting in the end zone for the Pack. Great way to celebrate homecoming, and then we're on to Duke the week following. That's going to do it for us here on Friday. Be sure to hit that like button if you have not already. Put all of your comments in the comment box. Tell us what you think about Kenton's keys, any other additional fan comments based on the ones we read, and give us your final thoughts and pregame score predictions ahead of Saturday's matchup as well. Mash that subscribe button if you have not already. We'll see you on Saturday afternoon for our post-game live following this game against Stanford. So until then, go Pack.
Go Pack. If you see us at the tailgates, you didn't see us.
Thank you, Doc Rivers.